Thank you for joining me. It's Dr. Jennifer Mukija here, and this is our first episode of Kitchen Time. We're here in my kitchen, and today we're going to talk about scaffolding. Now, scaffolding is actually a construction term, but it's a fantastic concept that I like to use when we discuss health and wellness, lifestyle changes. Now, where scaffolding is important is, let's say you go to your GP and they recommend to you a certain lifestyle change. Take, for example, reducing sugar, getting more sleep, having more exercise, all of these types of recommendations. And you think, great, I'm going to make this change, I'm going to turn my life around, and let's take the example of reducing sugar intake. You go home and you think, okay, now I'm going to cut out the obvious things, cakes, sweets, syrups, and then you think, okay, I'm going to be really good and I'm going to look at unexpected sources of sugar. So you go into finding hidden sources of sugar, even sources of sugar such as, tomato sauce. That is a big hidden source of sugar. Lots of sauces contain a lot of sugar. So, using sauce on meals each day, you may not even realize all of this hidden sugar in your food. And as you start to go through this process, you start to realize that there's more and more and more foods that you're needing to cut out of your diet. And that can be quite upsetting and quite a feeling of deprivation, of restriction, that you're having a lot of limits placed on you. And, in our day-to-day lives, a lot of us like familiarity. We like to have our routines and our rituals. And when all of that is getting stripped away because you're having such a huge dietary change, it can bring a lot of feelings of sadness. So that's where this concept of scaffolding comes in. It's about putting in place some structures before we start pulling and pushing and reconstruction or redesigning. Okay, so we're putting up a support framework so that the change can take place with ease, without these huge feelings of disruption. Now, as always, I am a medical doctor, but I'm no longer practicing medicine. And so if these concepts are something that you'd like to adopt, especially if you have diabetes or you're on insulin or any medication, it's really important to have a chat with your doctor. I'm not your personal physician, okay? So just want to make that clear. Now, what I can do is give you some information, general information, and hopefully some inspiration today to get you on your way. So let's go back to scaffolding. Now, let's take the example again of wanting to reduce the amount of sugar that you take into your diet. So what I like to suggest is that as part of the erection of this scaffolding, we actually reduce the amount of sugar by actually changing the palate. So we're actually going to change our taste so that we don't crave sugar as much, and therefore we actually naturally start to reduce the amount of sugar in our diet without force, basically. Now, how I like to do this is to bring in some bitter flavors. So let's take the example of coffee. Perhaps you love sugar in your coffee, or you love to go and get a really syrupy, milky coffee in the morning. Now, there's no judgment here. I do enjoy a seasonal Starbucks. I'm sure I will be crucified by most Australians for saying that. But let's say, it's Christmas time and you want to have your gingerbread latte. Look, I've got no problems with that. But let's say you want a syrupy, milky coffee every morning, and maybe by mid-morning you want another one. That may present a problem. It might be something that you want to address. Now, it's going to be a bit of a long stretch if you go from a syrupy, milky latte to a long black. That's probably something that most people would find difficult to change all at once. It's just poles apart. So rather than cutting out the syrupy coffee, or rather than even just reducing the amount of sugar, have your syrupy latte. But at the same time, start on a regular basis to introduce some more bitter flavors so that you expand your palate and get your body used to taking on a broader range of tastes. Now, dandelion tea is great. It's very accessible, okay? So you can get it from Woolworths or Coles, okay? Most grocery stores. Usually the brand that they stock in these places, it may not be organic, okay? It may not be completely pure dandelion tea, so it may contain chicory as well. Look, I think although we love to go for the best and finest product, it's also about taking into account accessibility, what's practical, what's affordable, and I think that making a small change is better than making no change at all. Okay, so dandelion tea has a very bitter flavour, and if you start to incorporate it on a daily basis, it can really help to change your palate. So you'll still enjoy those sweet drinks, but because your palate's broadened, you won't be craving it all the time. What I recommend is to start with a very small amount if you find the taste really difficult to manage. So literally maybe mid-morning or in the afternoon. It's wonderful to have in the afternoon. It just helps with digestion. It's got I should mention, it is a very mild diuretic, okay? So that's quite important if you're on, frusemide or spironolactone or any other diuretic. It is also an appetite stimulant, funnily enough, but although it may make you feel a little bit more hungry, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be craving sugar, all right? And yes, I did mention it often. It is mixed with other, flours, so chicory is a common one. So just being aware of those three things and talking with your doctor if you have any concerns, or, there could be medication interactions or unwanted unanticipated side effects. Important to be aware of that. But just start with a small cup, so just a quarter cup of hot water. Pop the tea bag in. Doesn't need to be sitting there for ages, just a few minutes, and then have a nice black dandelion tea. Over time, you will notice that your palate changes. You will notice that you start to be able to tolerate bitter foods and crave those ultra sweet foods less. That's one way. Another fantastic way is through the use of noni juice. Now, noni juice is another very bitter herbal drink made from a noni fruit from Fiji. Now, mentioning noni, mentioning unexpected sugar, A lot of noni juices are sold with sugar, and I would recommend not taking these because that sort of defeats the purpose, but to actually go for the noni juice which doesn't contain any sugar at all. It's very strong, very bitter, and you only need a little shot glass, okay? So I might even have mine here. Just this size, okay? Just this size. So I don't even do a full shot in the morning, just about this much. So you just take it, I just take it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, and honestly you almost don't need a coffee after that because it just gives you an absolute boost. It's so bitter that it could probably grow hairs on your chest, as they say. So that's another way that you can broaden your flavour profile and reduce your sugar intake. So scaffolding has a lot more to it. There's a lot more we can cover in a lot more depth. But this just gives you an idea of how we can start to build that supportive structure before we start just, redesigning and pulling out parts and creating complete chaos. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion today. Please like, subscribe and comment and let me know if there's anything else that you would like me to discuss or if you have any questions. Have a fantastic day.